You have to come with us.
Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished.
Neo, please. I have a son, Jacob, aboard the Gnosis. Please, watch over him.
I'll try.
So if I told you that one of the most famous action movies of the 1990s, I mean, The Matrix, obviously.
Right, yeah.
If I told you it isn't actually a futuristic sci-fi script at all, but rather this literal, like highly specific map of a 130-year-old African culture, you would probably think I needed to take the blue pill.
I mean, it really does sound like a massive leap.
It does, right?
Yeah, because we're so used to watching movies as just purely literal entertainment. You know, you see a leather trench coat, you see someone dodging a bullet in slow motion, and you just sort of accept it as this surface level spectacle.
Exactly. But do you remember those magic eye posters?
Oh, yeah.
The ones that were just everywhere in the malls in the 90s, the stereograms?
Yeah, you'd stare at them for hours.
Right. You stare at this neon, totally chaotic pattern of static. And at first, I mean, it just looks like visual noise.
Just a mess.
Just a complete mess. But then, you know, you unfocus your eyes, you sort of adjust how your brain is processing the image, and suddenly, boom.
It pops out.
An entirely different three-dimensional landscape just jumps out at you, like a spaceship or a dolphin or whatever.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, once you see that hidden 3D image, you literally cannot unsee it. The flat picture is just forever changed.
Which is honestly exactly the psychological shift required for today's material on this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're looking at this really fascinating TED Talk. It's titled The Matrix Decoded Series, and the author is a researcher named Thomas Anderson.
Which, okay, if you are a hardcore fan of the movie, you already know that's the character Neo's real name before he gets unplugged.
Exactly, yeah.
So right off the bat, this author is kind of winking at us, right? He's telling us that this entire presentation is this meta exercise in, like, waking up and looking deeper.
He definitely is. And, you know, Anderson's core premise here is that to truly understand this film, you have to treat it as what he calls a symbolic mirror.
A symbolic mirror.
Right. And to do that, we have to start by grounding ourselves in the cultural context of when it was actually released. So think back to 1999.
The end of the millennium.
Exactly. We are sitting right on the precipice, right before the true explosion of the internet and, frankly, artificial intelligence as we understand it today.
Oh yeah, the anxiety was real.
So real. There was just this massive societal anxiety about systems, about control, and about technology just erasing humanity.
Totally.
So Anderson argues that to look into a symbolic mirror, you kind of have to accept that maps always hold more territory than you can trace in one sitting. You have to stop asking what is happening on the screen and start asking what those specific details are pointing to out here in the real world.
Okay, let's unpack this, because asking an audience to decode a 90s action movie sounds like a bit of a stretch until you actually look at the evidence Anderson brings to the table.
Right.
Take the character of Morpheus. Everyone knows him as the calm mentor offering the pills.
The iconic red and blue pills.
Exactly. But Anderson points out that the name Morpheus, which is pulled directly from Greek mythology, translates to the god of dreams.
And see, what's fascinating here is that single detail completely recontextualizes his role in the narrative.
Yeah.
Because he isn't just a resistance fighter. He is literally the mythological figure responsible for waking humanity up from a simulated collective dream state.
It's so intentional.
It really is. But the decoding goes even deeper when you look at the ship he commands. The hovercraft they use to navigate the ruined, desolate, real world.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
Which, let's be honest, is a very specific, incredibly clunky name for a sci-fi spaceship.
Very specific, yeah. Because historically, King Nebuchadnezzar was a powerful Babylonian king.
Okay.
And what is he most famous for in the ancient texts? He was tormented by these prophetic dreams of a massive, glorious empire that he ultimately just couldn't hold on to.
Wow.
An empire that was destined to shatter into pieces.
Now, you might be thinking, and I know I did at first, are we just over-intellectualizing a cool script here?
Sure.
Like, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, right? But the specificity of that connection, a ship navigating the ruins of an empire humanity couldn't hold on to, captained by the literal god of dreams. It just proves this was built by design.
Absolutely.
It's practically begging the audience to dig beneath the floorboards of the narrative.
It demands decoding, really, and Anderson makes the case that a symbolic mirror rewards the viewer differently every time they look at it.
Because you spot new things.
Exactly. New decodes just surface with every pass. Once you stop viewing the film as like just a sequence of martial arts fights,
Which are great fights, by the way.
Totally. But once you start viewing it as a diagnostic tool for our own reality, the entire architecture of the story shifts.
Which means we really have to look at the foundation of that architecture. I mean, if the ship is a map and the characters are maps, what is the ultimate destination in the film?
Right. Where are they trying to go?
Zion. The last human city. So if this movie is a symbolic mirror, the big question is, who are the Zionites in our actual world?
And to find that real-world equivalent, Anderson looks at the exact demographic data the film actually gives us about Zion.
Okay.
First, it's an underground survival mechanism, right? It is not this ancient civilization with roots stretching back into antiquity.
It's new.
Very new. Built out of the ashes of the old world. And the population is roughly 250,000 people.
And crucially, how is that population made up? You have the freeborn, people born entirely outside the machine simulation.
Right.
And then you have those who were freed from inside it, unplugged and pulled down into the city.
Yes, but the most important demographic detail, the one you see reflected in the faces of the Zionites throughout all the films, is that there is no single bloodline.
Right.
The genetics of the human race in the city are completely mixed and remixed. There is no singular ethnic purity left. And honestly, more importantly to the themes of the film, there is nothing that needs to be pure.
Yeah, that's a huge distinction.
It is. Nobody in Zion can point to one coordinate on a map and say, that soil is exclusively where my ancestors come from.
They just don't have a geographical origin point. I think Anderson describes them as a people assembled, not descended.
Assembled, not descended.
Yeah.
Let's explore why that distinction matters so much.
Okay.
Because for most of human history, the concept of a nation or, a unified people, it's been defined by a shared line stretching back to a specific plot of soil.
Right, like ancestral lands.
Exactly. It relies on a shared clan, a shared unbroken language, a shared name that survived intact for generations. Traditional nations draw their strength from that unbroken historical tether.
And Zion fundamentally challenges that definition.
It asks this radical question. Can you be a fiercely distinct unified civilization if your origins are entirely fragmented?
The way I think about it is kind of comparing a traditional nation to a solid block of marble.
Okay, I like that.
Right. It's carved from one specific quarry, one deep place in the earth. The material is uniform, it's ancient, and its perceived strength comes from that singular origin.
Right.
But Zion is like a stained glass window. It's assembled from these broken, disparate, differently colored pieces of glass scavenged from a dozen different places.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, because individually, those pieces have literally nothing in common. But when they are arranged together and bonded with lead and intense heat, they form this cohesive, resilient picture that is just entirely new.
And that concept of the stained glass window is the exact mechanism that leads Anderson to the real-world civilization at the center of his talk.
Yes.
Because Zion is not just a broad philosophical metaphor for humanity. It is a highly specific mirror for a real group of people, the Goffal.
So who are the Goffal? Where is this real-world Zion?
If we connect this to the bigger picture to find them, you have to look at the historical map of the late 19th and early 20th century. Specifically, the last British colony on the African continent, which would eventually become modern-day Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And much like the fictional Zion, the Goffal are not an ancient people with a lineage running back to the dawn of recorded history. They are a newly created civilization. They're just over 130 years old.
Just 130 years. So to understand how they formed, we really need to look at the intense kind of societal pressure cooker of colonial Africa at that time.
Yes, the historical context is everything here. Because in the 1890s, the colonial system in what was then Rhodesia was obsessively focused on racial categorization.
Oh, yeah. The boxes.
Always the boxes. The ruling class wanted neat, distinct boxes. They wanted these pure categories to maintain their social hierarchies.
Right.
But, human nature just doesn't work in neat boxes. As people from all over the world arrived, laborers, traders, engineers, and they mixed with the local populations, this entirely new demographic began to emerge.
And the colonial system, which honestly sounds a lot like the rigid controlling machines in the Matrix, they just did not know how to process a demographic that blurred the lines.
Precisely. The system viewed this mixed population as a direct threat to the established order. So what did they do? The colonial government systematically pushed these disparate mixed heritage families into the same marginalized neighborhoods and zones.
They forced them together.
Yes. They restricted where they could live, where they could work, and who they could even interact with. They were forced into these tight communities. And this is where Anderson gives us this incredible, tangible example of a single street in the city of Bulawayo.
Oh, I love this part. The demographic breakdown of this street is just mind-blowing.
It really is. So in just one house, you would find like a grandmother whose father was a Scottish railway engineer and whose mother was Ndebele.
Wow.
And literally next door to her is a family carrying Cape Malay spice traders on one side of their lineage and Shona heritage on the other.
It's just wild.
And then you go a few doors down and there is a household with a Chinese great-grandfather who ran a shop near the old market, and his children married into a family that was already half English and half local African.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the oppressive systems of the time forced all these people into the same marginalized zones, right?
Right.
So the children of all these incredibly diverse households, they all grew up together, and eventually they started marrying each other.
Exactly.
So you have the offspring of one mixing marrying the offspring of another entirely different mixing.
Anderson calls it a remix of a remix.
A remix of a remix. I love that.
It's perfect, right? When you zoom out, the biological reality mirrors the sci-fi concept of Zion perfectly. He points out that you could stand in one room at a Goffal wedding and find some trace of half the planet's genetics within a single family tree.
Which, creates a profound friction when you're navigating the modern world. Just think about the sheer societal resilience it takes to exist like that today.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we live in a society that is still completely obsessed with those check boxes.
Very much so.
The census wants you in a box. Bureaucracy wants a simple, easily categorizable narrative. So how do you check a box when your personal heritage spans Scottish engineering, Chinese merchants, Ndebele roots, and Cape Malay traders?
You can't.
Right. To the outside world, to those blocks of marble we talked about, this lack of a single origin point looks like confusion.
But the reality is the exact opposite. And this really brings us to the emotional anchor of Anderson's text. He actually interviews a Goffal woman, Auntie Glenda, about this exact friction.
Yeah.
He asks her, how does it feel to be told by society that you don't fit into a recognized historical box?
And her response is just incredible.
It is. She dismisses the premise entirely. She says, and I quote, "People think we're confused about who we are. We're not confused. We just don't come from one place. We come from everywhere at once, and we still know exactly who we are."
I just love the fierce defiance in that statement. I mean, she is outright rejecting the idea that purity, or a single plot of soil, is a prerequisite for identity.
Exactly. Because their identity isn't forged by shared blood, since there isn't one dominant bloodline to share anyway.
Right.
They are held together by what Anderson calls shared corridors instead of shared streets. A shared war instead of a shared harvest.
Wow.
They bonded over a shared refusal to disappear no matter how thoroughly the colonial systems, the machines in our metaphor, tried to erase them or force them into some unnatural category.
The hardship of being marginalized is the lead and heat that bonded the stained glass together.
Exactly.
So, okay, we have established this beautifully assembled, remixed identity. But how does Anderson connect their real-world lived experience directly back to the technological kind of cyberpunk themes of The Matrix?
Good question.
Because it's one thing to say they are mixed like the people in Zion, right? But it's another to say they actually mirror the technological aesthetic of the film itself.
Well, Anderson bridges that gap using a very specific coding metaphor.
Okay, lay it on me.
He suggests that if traditional nations are solid blocks of code unbroken, legacy software running clean from one line to the next, then Zion, and by extension the Goffal, are a glitch.
A glitch.
Yes, they're the glitch written by a dozen different hands, in a dozen different languages that somehow still flawlessly compiles into one people.
Okay, here is where I actually have to push back on Anderson's text a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a real problem with his use of the word glitch.
Why is that? I mean, the coding metaphor aligns perfectly with the cybernetic world of the movie.
It does. It totally does. But a glitch implies a mistake, doesn't it? It implies an error in the system, something fragile that wasn't supposed to happen, and more importantly, something that might crash the program at any moment. It just sounds like a weakness to me.
Well, okay, to defend Anderson's framing for a second, you have to look at it from the perspective of the oppressive systems.
Fair enough.
Right. To the 1890s colonial government, the Goffal literally were an error. They broke the racial categorization code.
Yeah.
The system didn't want them to exist, so in the eyes of the machine, they were a glitch that disrupted the neat execution of the software.
I get that. From the machine's point of view, they are an anomaly. But based on everything Anderson reveals about how tightly woven and resilient this culture is, a glitch just feels too fragile.
Yeah, I see your point.
Because the Goffal haven't crashed. In fact, they've expanded. The diaspora has scattered them from Bulawayo and Harare to like parks in London and suburbs in Perth, Australia.
They're all over the world now.
Right. And despite that global separation, they remain tightly bonded. So maybe in the grand operating system of human history, they aren't a glitch at all.
Where are they then?
Maybe they are the ultimate patch.
Yeah.
You know? A software upgrade for how humanity actually survives when the original code is no longer enough.
Okay, that is a very compelling distinction. Because a glitch is a vulnerability, whereas a patch fixes a vulnerability by introducing new adaptable code. And when you look at how they have survived the diaspora, the idea of an adaptable patch makes a lot of sense. Anderson himself notes that being loosely bonded, being impossible to pin to a single lineage, is actually their core defense mechanism.
How so? Like, practically speaking.
Well, think about how oppressive systems operate. They know how to target a single block of code. They know how to conquer a single origin point, a single plot of land, or a single pure lineage.
Right, they can just isolate it.
Exactly. But how do you systematically erase a people who come from everywhere at once?
Oh, wow. You can't.
You literally can't. The resilience is built directly into the sheer complexity of the remix. You cannot conquer a nation that isn't tied to a single geography.
Which makes the way they communicate even more fascinating to me. Yeah. Because if they are this living, breathing software patch, their everyday language reflects it perfectly.
Oh, the linguistic details Anderson provides are where the symbolic mirror truly locks into place.
It's so cool.
It really is. The Goffal have this deeply ingrained slang, and the vocabulary sounds like it was pulled straight out of a William Gibson cyberpunk novel.
Yeah.
For example, in Goffal culture, a close friend or a brother isn't just called a friend. They refer to them as a connection.
A connection, like a server ping or a secure network link.
Yes. And it gets better if someone wants to tell you to use your brain, to think logically through a problem. They don't say use your head.
What do they say?
They say, use your computer.
Use your computer. That is amazing. And if they want to ask if you saw what just happened, like if you caught the latest gossip or a specific event unfolding in the room, what do they say then?
They ask, scan the move.
Scan the move. I mean, you cannot fabricate a detail like that.
No, you can't.
It is literal tech jargon scanning, computers connections just woven organically into the everyday conversational slang of a 130-year-old African culture.
It's incredible.
It really proves how deeply intertwined the lived reality of the Goffal and the cinematic metaphor of the Matrix truly are. They speak like people who inherently understand that they are navigating a complex system.
And that profound adaptability is exactly why the film calls Zion the last human city. Anderson concludes his TED Talk by arguing that Zion was never describing a physical place near the core of the earth.
No.
It was describing the last kind of people this world still knows how to make. A people assembled, not descended, who are capable of standing any way regardless of what the machines throw at them.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Let's trace the journey we've just been on today.
Yeah, let's recap.
We started this deep dive looking at a 1999 sci-fi action movie starring Keanu Reeves, a movie famous for slow-motion bullets and cool leather jackets.
Right.
But simply by adjusting our focus, by looking past the surface spectacle and treating the film as a symbolic mirror, we decoded a map. And that map led us to the incredibly rich, vibrant, resilient Goffal culture of Zimbabwe.
And the central insight here is a fundamental redefinition of how we view human identity itself.
Definitely.
We are so heavily conditioned by history and society to believe that true identity must be rooted in ancient purity, in unbroken bloodlines and a single definable plot of soil.
The blocks of marble.
Exactly. But the story of the Goffal proves that identity can be equally, if not more, powerful when it is forged through shared survival. It is about a shared refusal to disappear.
Annie Glenda was right. You absolutely do not have to come from one place to know exactly who you are.
Which is such a vital reminder for how we consume information and art. Anderson's work proves that a map always holds more territory than you can trace in one sitting.
Always.
The Matrix is just one mirror. It challenges us to ask, what other symbolic mirrors are hidden in plain sight? What other pieces of pop culture, art, or media are actually complex diagnostic tools for our own world, just waiting for us to stop looking at the surface and start decoding the depths?
I love that. And, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Yeah, something that wasn't explicitly spelled out in Anderson's text, but feels like the unavoidable conclusion of everything we've just discussed.
Let's hear it.
The text repeatedly calls the Goffal the last kind of people this world still knows how to make. But as I look at the world today, I really wonder if that statement is actually looking backward instead of forward.
Meaning, you think it's not the end of a process, but the beginning.
Exactly. Think about the massive acceleration of globalization over the last few decades. Think about how the modern diaspora works. Economics, climate conflict, and technology are just spreading all of us further and further away from our original soils.
That's true. The world is highly mobile now.
Right. The blocks of marble are slowly breaking apart. We are constantly moving, relocating, and mixing. So, is it possible that the Goffal model, a civilization assembled rather than descended, connected by shared experiences and shared corridors rather than pure bloodlines, isn't just a unique historical anomaly from 130 years ago?
Oh, I see where you're going.
What if the Goffal are actually a preview of what all human civilization will look like a few centuries from now?
That is a profound perspective, because as the world gets smaller and borders become more fluid, the isolation required to maintain a block of marble becomes almost impossible.
Exactly.
We are all slowly but surely becoming the stained glass.
We are all becoming the remix. So the next time you look at something that seems chaotic, fragmented, or like a glitch in the system, whether it's an old 90s action movie on your TV or the incredibly complex heritage of a new friend, remember the magic eye poster.
Unfocus your eyes.
Take a breath. Unfocus your eyes from the neat little boxes you think you're supposed to see and look a little deeper. Because
all the owns act the box down. Goffal owns box down. Goffal owns could fix a G on the side of the road, the whole engine. Or 2 spanners.
Trust me. Here is the
It's that time of the year. Mark the calendar. We jolt into the big bride. All the Foggals, all the men's side. One love.
Let's get together.
Listen. One love, one heart.
This one is dedicated to all of you who come from Kong. Check this out.
It's been a long week, my China. Throat is dry like the Kalahari. You know what I need. Cast the love, know the story. Colors are still taking life easy, so easy.
Love in the rain, love in the rain. It's that rain that grows the crops, rain that grows the maize. Loving it. Might go for a run in the rain, and I was told, you're gonna go for a run in the rain, you get sick. I said, why?
So the Guans keep jolling. Part 2. Goffal's United. Boom singing at the place. Sing it. Jolling we jolling. Jolling we jolling we jolling. Yo. Jolling we jolling. Black Mamba man. Jolling we jolling we jolling we jolling we jolling we jolling. Yo King say. Jolling we jolling.